right, and you're streaming. And you're all right, got about a minute or so. All right, it's 6 p.m. We'll call the service meeting to order. I'll take roll call. All right.
Cosgray,
Present.
Foreman, present, and McCrary is not here.
And also in attendance, we've got the mayor, fiscal officer, we've got Mr. Hamilton, Foreman, Bob Hankinson, Mr. Keller, village administrator. Anybody else on? Nope. For visitors? Nope. All right, I'll entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes of previous meeting.
I make a motion, we accept the minutes as written. Foreman.
I will second.
Foreman. Yes. Cosgray.
Yes. It's approved. No visitors, right? Nope. So looks like most of the goals for 2021 have been accomplished or moved to 2022.
We have quite a few that we still are working on too. So, but today on talking to staff that they feel as though we'll still get them done, like the ground storage tank cleaning and etc. So I think we're moving along pretty well. The cemetery project, Mr. Weaver was in today to work with Barb. We had some issues around some of the lots at the Basel Memorial, and they got all of those issues resolved. So the cemetery project is moving along really well. So that's what I have in the way of projects, unless someone has a question.
All right, I guess we could move along.
Okay.
For reports.
Well, we'll start with the metrics. So if you look at page 1 of the report, I put a little insert graph in there because I wanted to show you, Joey and I are working on unaccountable water project. And I put that insert in there to show you how close his raw water is with his finished water and how stable that process has become. So while we have a couple of data points messed up or out of line, most of them are in line, and as you can see, they're very close. So I wanted to point that out on slide 1. Okay. Moving along then, on the same slide on the bottom of it, the finished water versus wastewater processed. As you can see, we hadn't had a lot of rain today. Now we do, but as you can see, the wastewater production dipped down. And as you can see, the water production per finish is pretty consistent. Wastewater is not, and of course we all know that has a lot to do with I&I. So I think all of this is saying what we already know. So if we can go to page 2, please. Page 2 is just then focuses on the wastewater. Again, as you can see, you know, he's had a couple of dips, but this process isn't as stable as the water process. And, you know, it's kind of characteristic of, do we have dry weather? And as you can see, the one data point we did. Below that, the usage we've been tracking, if you remember, the electric usage for the wastewater treatment plant. Interesting this month that they both went down a little bit. So we were down about 2.69% in our usage compared to last month, but then also down a tad in how much we produce. So hopefully we can get those 2 points together, closer together than that. But Moving on. So page 3, this just goes back to what I was talking about, how we don't have a lot of rain and we have, dry flow, lesser flow. We've only had 2.69 inches of rain in September, which was a little bit above August, but not much. But again, we're staying stable with no overflows. So I think we've got a good handle on the wastewater right now. Moving on. Page 4, I think this is an unusual report out this month for the utility report. If you notice, we are up in the number of accounts, but just a little below the amount of the accounts. So what's that mean? That means we've had we had an unusual month, as I'm seeing a lot of first timers, just a month behind. I don't know whether it's just a pay difference between when they would get paid from their jobs to when they paid the bills. But we didn't have to shut off as many this month, and our collections are up. So again, I don't know if I've explained the process. We have a shut off list that gets produced, gets created, and then we go through, and anything that is above $100, then we make an effort to obtain payment or disconnect their water. So we have a couple of accounts on there that are still rather large because they're vacant. Again, we have 3 vacant houses in town that contribute a lot to that. And also some of the agencies that are helping with those residents that need assistance are a little bit behind. So I think the report is better than what it looks, especially in the number of accounts. So I wanted the last graph on the sheet. I have the circles around those points. I wanted to highlight that if you notice, those are just above September's. So this September, 2020 September and 2019 September were almost the same readings. So to me, that says that we've really gone a long ways to get this process consistent. I just kind of wanted to point that out because it stood out so well on this graph. But you'll also see that the amount of billing is getting closer to the amount of treated water. As we continue with this unaccounted for water project that we're working on, one of the big ones one of the big hitters is one of the projects on the list, and that's installing a new water meter at the high school. We're pushing to do that over Thanksgiving. So I think that'll also show a difference. What I mean by that is the meter is old, like over 20 years old. So what's happening, it could have slowed down, but we won't know until we get the new meter in there. So we keep biting away at this piece by piece to try to identify those areas that there could be accounted for water. And of course, as you all know, the swimming pool was a big hit. The swimming pool, by redoing the whole bottom of that pool, we really captured a lot of leakage or prevented a lot of leakage. So that's the graph. That's the metrics for the month.
Parks and Recreation Board.
I wanted to talk a little bit about bugs before we leave here.
Okay.
So we have been meeting with a company out of Maryland that Jason, our operator, has put us in touch with. They sell bugs. They have a different strains of bugs for different areas, and they happen to have areas of a need. So they have 2 strains of bugs that are used specifically for paper mills. And what'll happen is that we will put this, well, kind of like what Wade was saying that one night, just dumping it into where the membranes are, and these bugs will go to work and start eating our are reducing the solids of the paper that we're getting from the paper mill. Now, this gentleman told us that he worked with the paper mill before, so he's very familiar with their waste. So we feel very comfortable in what he's telling us. We also reached out to Suez to explain to them, because they hadn't gotten back to us. We had asked them a number of times if they had anybody that was into bugs that we could talk to, and they never got back to us. But when Brad sent communications to Jack at Suez, who's our contact, he said that this was good, that it would not hurt the membranes at all. In fact, it might help extend the life of the membranes. So we're excited to get this started. It'll be a liquid additive that we'll put directly into the membranes. We just got, we're getting the vendor set up right now as a vendor, so we could go ahead and get this ordered and get it started, hopefully in a couple of weeks. So we'll let you know how that goes. The gentleman told me he does service some other membrane plants around Ohio, one being in St. Mary's, and he's getting me a contact to talk to them about their results. So I think this is very promising. Jason and Brad are pretty excited about it. They think this will be good. Now I'm done.
Yeah, that was a pretty good analogy at last meeting with Rick's, with the RIDX, with the same thing with the septic systems. It's essentially, it's the same idea.
Yeah.
On a more industrial scale.
Yep.
What, real quick, Terry, what are we setting up to do a return on investment type analysis on this? Or is there any way we can measure, we're spending X dollars on these bugs, and then how do we measure our return on that investment? Is there a way to, how much more efficient the membranes work, or how much more they can put out? How do we measure that?
Well, first of all, I think the biggest measure is no overflow. If you remember, it was the solids that clogged up the system that caused us to overflow. I think that we will be monitoring this very close. And to answer your question, I haven't thought about what those metrics will be yet, but I will make sure that at the next meeting we have a report out. We'll be tracking it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
To that point, we do know how much we had to spend on equipment to express off the extra sludge. So
That is correct.
in lieu of any number that we can get, that would be a good start.
Right.
As long as we don't have to spend that much money doing that again.
Yeah.
Right.
Putting a few gallons of bugs in the system to prevent that is probably worth it.
Right. So there'll be probably a number of metrics that we'll be able to look at, to your point, Wade, from the end of the process to even the process itself as it dissolves the solids. So more to come.
Are we ready to go to, I don't know, any other departments we want to talk about?
No, I think everybody else is just really busy. We did start leaf pickup. It's been very sporadic. So Tim doesn't feel that they will be deep into leaves until next week. But we have been making some rounds to go around. We did some improvements at the park. If you remember at the last meeting, I said that the PEP, our insurance adjusters, had come to make an audit of all of our parks and had found 4 critical items that needed to be fixed. And so Tim and his team completed those items on Friday. So I'll be submitting a report to the insurance company to show them that we have repaired all that they had asked for. So we've been working on that. We've been doing some pothole filling some potholes and hanging some signs. And I'll talk more about the signs, especially in Basel Street, when we get into safety tonight.
I do have a question, and it's regards to the I project that we've got a plan to address that. And if I remember right, one of the items was acquiring a camera system for us to be able to camera the
That
old
is correct.
tiles.
Yes, that is correct. And at the last meeting, I thought I had reported out that we did purchase that camera. We're getting training. So as of right now, we have the camera that has been installed like we proposed in the back of the wastewater treatment plant vans, so that it's protected from the elements, and also that the person operating it can be sitting in the back of that van at the time of doing it. So we will be putting together, we've divided the village into zones or quadrants, and we'll be doing those one at a time, just like we're, doing the water project, just eating it a piece at a way. We did, if you remember, I reported out that we applied to, that was one of the projects that got sent up for that House Bill 168, which at this time we have heard nothing from. We figured by now we would have heard something like your project is approved, your project's not approved, but we did move ahead by on that I project, Mr. Cosgrave, by buying flow meters instead of the rental of flow meters. The EPA wanted us to take a longer study, and from the cost of the rental for those flow meters, it would have been more than if we just purchased them outright. So we are purchasing 4 flow meters then to be a part of this project. So hopefully those come in soon too. So we're moving forward on those, on the I project.
Outstanding.
Thank you.
As a follow-up question on the cameras,
Yes.
and tying that into the residential properties with discharge from, say, their downspouts going into the wastewater side of things, would those cameras be able to look down a downspout where the downspout goes in to trace those and see if those go in? Or that the smoke testing would have done that, is that right?
That I was just going to say that's what the purpose of the smoke testing. So yeah, no, the camera wouldn't be able to.
Some pumps it may be able to catch if we see water come on and then water go off when we're in the line, like on a time frame.
In the line, correct.
We might have to hang out at a particular property for a while, see it, but we would be able to see the sump pump probably.
That is a true statement.
Yeah, that's the one that's hard to catch because the smoke test doesn't reveal.
Right.
Okay. Oh, great.
And even then the sump pump might be hard to catch because you're coming out of the service line and it's just, your sump pump's only so many gallons and it sounds big when it's in your house, but it pumps it out and it just comes out as a little trickle. Yeah.
Exactly the same.
Yeah.
You can see them emptying in. It does, to Mr. Foreman's point, you can see them where a sump pump is emptying into the line in the collection system, definitely. It's like a trickle, if nothing else.
Sounds like a great investment to move forward with that project. So
I'm really excited about it. I think we have some really good projects going on.
so any Parks and Rec board have anything?
We are going to be meeting this Wednesday at 5:30. I did get a phone call today, which I'll be presenting to them. There's a gentleman who runs baseball tournaments in Ohio, and he wants to rent Alt Park to do some baseball tournaments in. So I have to get some more information from him, and then we'll see what he has to say. I'm not sure if the organization is a part of our group here in Baltimore, or if it's just a separate, like, we run tournaments kind of group. I'll find out more though, and from him, and be able to report back.
Nothing probably from the BDRC. Does anybody
Just
know?
the only thing we can talk about is, we'll talk about that under new business, is that urban canopy restoration grant. They'll help
Right.
us with that.
All right. The old business was the football field parking area.
Interesting conversations I've had. I talked to Joe at the school, who explained to me that before him and before Tim, so a long time ago, maybe somebody will remember this, that portion of Kumler used to be gravel. And there was an agreement between the school and the village that if the village paved that area, the school would be responsible for it. Now, I have searched all over and I cannot find any agreement like that, nor could Joe come up with it. I received on Friday the plans for the upgrade to the track. They're adding another lane over there. And as I was reviewing the blueprints, I noticed there was nothing drawn in where the parking blocks were at. So I sent Dr. Johnson an email and said, I'm assuming then we agree that the blocks should be moved, and you're going to do something else. And he emailed me back today and said, I just got the email from him. And he said, Joe talked to me and shared that he reviewed the blocks to protect our newly installed fence from individuals parking along it and running into it. And he said, I always thought there were parking blocks along that side of the street before protecting the fence. There were not. So these were new. So I will get back with him, because I have a suggestion, because between that fence and between the fence and the street, there is enough for a sidewalk. And I'm just wondering if they can install an elevated sidewalk there, which could add as a bumper for the cars and also give the pedestrians someplace to walk. So that's going to be my suggestion to him. But either way.
And then it would run the storm water right down the road to where we got to drop by their new building.
Bingo. So hopefully I can still work this with them. But does anybody know anything about that agreement? Have you ever heard that?
Never heard of it. And that's been a long, long time. That's been gravel.
Yeah, paved there since I can remember it.
Paid
So
for all.
So that's where I'm on that.
I want to go over to Bob real quick, because you've been here on council since '84. Anything that ring a bell?
No.
I like your sidewalk plan though, Terry.
The only trouble is,
I
the sidewalk has a block. If a truck backs in or pull in, the bumper going to almost cover half that sidewalk.
Well, unless they move their sidewalk in, but then again, that's quite frankly their issue.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying.
It puts a curb up for us to direct stormwater down to a drop. And it'll help their field, because it'll keep the stormwater from flowing down into the field.
Football field or the track.
So, all right, I like that plan, Terry,
I'm going to share it.
especially because it's someone else's money.
Yeah. So we'll move on to, that's it for the old business. Move on to the new business. First thing on the agenda is the OPWC Ground 36 project for North Granville Water Street Improvement Project. We have a proposed piece of legislation for council.
Correct. And at first, I apologize for this having to be an emergency, but the issue was this. We applied, if you remember, for the OPWC project for Park Drive last year and was awarded the grant. The issue was we could get nobody to bid on it. So consequently, we had a project that was approved, but we didn't have any bids on it. And we did not know whether we could resubmit this year or excuse me, resubmitted if we would get points off because of having an open project or what. So we found out that we're not going to get points out. So we put together this grandiose project that you're looking at. I apologize for that, my cough. But tonight on your packet where you were sitting, you would have seen the traffic count that I received from the Fairfield County engineer that they had taken for me. Thank you. I was amazed at the number of cars that are coming in Canal Road to Water Street to Granville. I had the traffic counter placed just north of Cliff Street, so I would catch all the traffic coming in before they either turned right or left or went straight. So I thought this was really an eye opener. I did not know this much was coming off of 37 onto Canal Road into the village. The only thing I'm disappointed in is that it doesn't tell me whether they're cars or trucks. In previous traffic studies I had from Licking County, it could tell me whether there were trucks or cars. So this is just total traffic. So as you can see, the average is probably around 600 a day, you know. Did everybody know this much traffic was coming through there?
I mean, I knew there was a lot, but 600 a day seems high.
Where was the counter at again?
It was
Before the
just-
railroad track?
No, when you come off of Water Street, come down East Water to make that curve to go on to Granville, we had it right there. So
Okay.
that way,
Between the two curves. then.
North of Cliff. just
right,
south of-
that way I didn't lose any traffic. So, because if I would put it on the other side of Cliff Street, then they could have turned right or left and they wouldn't have counted.
Yeah,
So
I
that-
thought they put up on the railroad tracks there, but yeah, because anybody that lives right in there, they'd be going across it too.
That's still a lot of people.
I know, 600, yeah.
Average, yeah. There were some days, because I had them do it for a week. And one day we were up to 677.
So,
That's just a lot of traffic. So that explains why that street is just such a mess over there. So this is the area that we originally picked. We're still looking at numbers and looking at matching and looking at what we can do. But we wanted to do an improvement project, much like we had bid out on Park Drive. And that would be including sidewalks, new water lines, which are very important in this area. The water lines in this area are like 1936-ish, and even a portion up on East Water Street is only a 2-inch. So this would, let us increase the sizes of the water, as I had said in your email, to a 6 or 8 inch. And we'll have to decide how big we want to go. We will need a PTI for this project because we are jumping up so many sizes. Now, out to the top of your drawing, the curve that goes up to the railroad tracks, that is a dead end, a dead water end. And we get a lot of complaints along there because there's no place for the water to go. So not only would we increase the water line size, we'd also put a flushing hydrant there so that we could flush it out. We have one service on the other side of the tracks, believe it or not, but we're not going to go over there because the amount of money and et cetera that would take us nowadays to get over there, because of the railroad, even if we could, I think that the team have been talking and they think if we put a flushing hydrant just this south of the railroad tracks, we'll get the same response. We also have a storm drop signified by that green line there on the first curve. That storm drop is a smaller, is only about 6 inches currently. So we'd be replacing it with a larger line and then extending that out, and that will help with all of the water up there in that area. So it's a pretty intense project. It is one of the biggest projects I've ever submitted. Right now it stands at $698,000, which means that our match from the village would have to be around $70,000 to $90,000. We had projected a project for just paving on Tim's side for 2022 of $70,000. So once Brian starts doing our finishes up on the budget, that would be our match money. We can do one or two things. We can try to submit a large project like this with as much match money as we can to see if we can get it, or we can cut the project down and only go to like Cliff Street and not all the way to Market Street with the water line and the and the paving, which would at least get us some of what we need. Right there at the corner of both those corners, the corner of Cliff and Granville, we've been on that area 6 or 7 times. Granville is line, they've been on there at least that much. So the whole line along this area has been repaired several times. So it really is in the need of just replacement. So again, it's almost a $700,000 project. We'll be working with Brian. We'll be talking more at staff on Wednesday. And if we need to lessen the project, we would just pull back to Cliff Street and not go all the way to Market Street. I know that was a lot. Questions?
Okay, if you just go to Cliff, what size of line is there between Cliff and Market? Is that a 4-inch?
Yes.
Okay.
Cliff and Market, I believe, yes.
So the 2-inch starts somewhere around in there?
The 2 inches up on East Water. So,
Okay,
so when you
that's
go
really
around the last curve up there, that line that feeds those houses out there are only a 2-inch line.
It's them 3 houses, Mary Call, and them 2 houses on the
Yeah.
south of the tracks. And
I believe one or both of those 2 houses actually has a pump and a pressure tank because they can't get enough water.
oh,
They literally are having to, because I built those and I know we had to add, when we built them, we had to add, I don't know if it got better later, but we had to treat it almost like a well where we were
Put a tank in the basement to
and add a
maintain
pump to
pressure.
get enough pressure to be able to operate the house. So it's a bad situation.
so they definitely need a bigger
Mhm.
line.
Yeah, I don't know if they're still that way. I would assume that they are.
We don't have anybody cross the tracks.
Mary
Yes, we
Call.
do.
Right there, yeah, one,
Yeah,
but we're not crossing the tracks. That's a 6-inch line we're putting in.
That is correct. That's what we want to put in. And she, believe it or not, we received no complaints. But the house on the south side of the tracks is where we get a lot of complaints. So, but we weren't going to cross the tracks, no. I think the biggest need, if I was to say this project, if I was to cut it in half, I would say the portion from the railroad tracks to Cliff Street to me is the most critical in the need. And then the second would be from Cliff Street to Market.
Why would we feel the need to cut it?
if I will try to, because the project's at 700,000, I have to see what my match can be.
Okay.
My goal with these grants is to take out next to nothing in loans. We would rather just do all grants with a match. And so that's what I strive for, no loans. So
All right,
that-
Terry, I'm gonna put you on the spot, probably for a Wednesday question. How does the road needs paved and they need water out there? Because like Rick said, they got pressure tanks and issues. But how does this line compare to lines on the Basel side of town? Why, if we're going to do a $700,000 project, why do we choose this one over something on the Basel side where we have consistent problems as well?
Well, first of all, I think the problems on the Basel side have dissipated a bit. And I know by saying that, I will be getting more complaints. I think it's a different scenario. I think the Basel is just how the lay of the land is over there. You know, we did put in that flushing hydrant there at Heterodox and Basel Street, and that has seemed to help. Did it solve the problem? No, we still have things to do there. But this, on the other hand, this water line has virtually just leaked like a sieve and sprung leaks all over. So I think it's kind of a different situation. I don't think the Basel line, the Basel water line is, and I may eat my words, but I don't believe that it's as in disrepair or in the need of repair as this line is here.
Okay.
Any questions on this pending legislation going up to council? I'll sponsor it coming out of the committee.
Thank you.
We need to vote on sending it up to,
Yeah, you should just vote on it to send it up.
all right, so make a motion,
Is that for both of them, resolution too?
well, if you want to go over the second Tree City USA
Oh, that's,
One,
that's,
two,
never mind.
Yeah, it's a different
That's-
project.
part
okay,
two.
okay.
So yeah, do
So if we'll do first, we got point one on new business is the OPWC project. I'll sponsor that out of committee. You have any discussions or questions?
make your motion.
I'll make a motion that we send it up to council
Foreman seconds.
and we'll vote on it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, we're all in favor. Goes up to council. That one's done.
I'm sorry, who seconded that? I missed it.
Mr. Foreman.
Mr. Foreman.
The only other
Thank you.
member here.
Yeah, the only one that can at this point.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you, Mr. Foreman.
We're on to point two. Tree Commission Urban Canopy Restoration Grant for East Market. Has to do with Tree City USA type stuff. And
It's a combination. What we, the way Steve explained to this before, when the ash borer came through and destroyed all of the ash trees, there was a grant that helped you remove the ash trees, the dead ash trees, which believe it or not, are very dangerous to move once they're dead. So what this grant now is doing is helping to replace those voids where there are missing trees. Now, one of the things that we selected at the tree committee was to do the East Market Street. If you remember, AEP came in and whacked down all those trees and because they were up in the power lines and there were a lot of missing trees. Well, this project, Steve has selected trees that will not grow that high. So they will stay below what needs to be height-wise so it doesn't get into the lines. They're very small species, and I think if you're on page 2, he's even listed the different types of leaves, different types of trees that they would be planting. The tree committee is very active, and my staff also helps, but they do most of the planting, and they also do most of the caring and the trimming and the watering of the plants. So this would allow us to get more trees next year. Every year, because we're a Tree City USA, we put aside $5,000 for trees. Sadly, most of our $5,000 each year is used to take down dead trees. And so this year, we were able to have $1,000 towards new trees. Trees are not cheap. So we can take some of that $5,000 that we usually budgeted out and use that, about 2,500 of that, for a matching grant. So we can double our money to be able to purchase trees. And so that's the purpose of the grant, is to replace the trees along East Market Street and then use some of the funding that we usually have each year for trees, so we can get more trees for our money.
I got a question. Now, these trees are gonna be in front of certain people, residents. Have you talked to the residents and asked them what kind of trees they like to have out in front of their house?
They will be located.
Have to break the leaves and look at the trees, they'll be the ones out in front of their house.
Right.
Did you get any input from the residents?
Yes, these will be located in right-of-ways, not on people's property. They'll be in the right-of-way, number one. And yes, there'll be a letter that goes out to explain, if we get the grant, to explain the grant and what kind of trees we'll be planting and et cetera. And that communications will go out to the residents where the trees will be planted prior to the planting.
I just didn't know if they had any input of what kind of trees goes in front of their house.
I
Be on their property, but it's
still there. And I know, I don't think, they say, hey, what do you want to see here? But I do know, because they planted some earlier this year, one of the spring plantings was in front of my neighbor's house. And while they were out there doing it, they stopped and talked to them and told them what they were planting and how to care for it and all that stuff. It's a good question, though.
So do I have any other questions or anything? Do I have a motion to send this up to council?
Foreman so moves.
I'll second. Mr. Foreman, do you want to sponsor that? Sure. All right, sponsored by Mr. Foreman. Motion to send to council, second by Cosgray. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Sending that up to council.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else under new business? Anybody have anything under new business for service committee? Any other questions?
Did a good job with a lot of information. Get it done in 45 minutes.
Yeah, so we've got,
I think my mayor told me I talk too much. I just like to make sure you have all the facts to make the right decisions with, and I know it's a lot sometimes. That's all I have, Mr. Cosgrave.
All right.
Oh, I do have one more, and I was going to do this at council,
Sure.
but I might as well do it now. I will be putting on the website advertisement for both Barb's job and a land and buildings job tomorrow.
All right. Without any other
How about
business?
one for Peg? Is that already?
That's the land and building
Oh,
job.
land, that's right, we renamed that, that's right. Never mind, I forgot we renamed that.
Yeah, we did.
All right. Any other business before the committee? If not, next meeting will be November 22nd at 6 p.m. A motion to adjourn.
Former makes a motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor, aye. Adjourn.
6:44. Here you go. Pass that around for safety. Okay.
Pass them down.
You know, I noticed about this right away. Chief. 40,000, 45,000 cars through there are within plus or minus 5 miles per hour.
Kind of eye-opening.
Yeah.
And they also had a pretty healthy reduction in speed.
I mean, that's over 90%. It's almost 90%.
Extra stuff there.
Yeah.
Previous minutes are
Good
signed.
data.
Yeah. In the times too. I mean, I guess it helps keep violations down if that's a big school bus route. Because, 5 to 6 a.m. I wouldn't have really expected that. 6 to 8.
Yeah, it's,
And then on the way home, 4 to 5, I would have expected more of the 5 to 7. 5 to 6 has got some, but
It's, like I said, when we pulled this down, and started to go through it, it was kind of, number one, the numbers of it.
Mhm.
I think, I thought it would be, I had like 30-ish.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, 6:46. We'll be ahead and start our safety committee meeting. Or with roll call.
Atkinson,
Present.
Hamilton,
Present.
McCreary is absent.
And also in attendance, we have the mayor, the VA, police chief. fiscal officer, also Mr. Foreman, officer. All right, approval of the minutes. I looked through them, I didn't see anything. So I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as written.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Aye. Aye. Okay. Let's see, visitors.
no,
None on the screen.
nope.
All right. Goals, 0 workplace accidents. All good there, Terry?
Yep, we're good.
Are replace and repair missing warning traffic signs? How's that going?
Well, we'll have to, that was one of Peg's items that she was in charge of. So we'll I'll review what she has so far and see where we need to go with that. But we have hung some other signs or placed some other signs we can talk about later.
Still working on it. All right, and the 0 fatal accidents and identify truck traffic problems, areas, and add signage. Everything was okay last time, everything's still good? All right. Anybody have any other goals for us before the end of the year? All right, reports, administrator, what do you got for us?
Well, you'll notice tonight under old business, you have listed the Canal Street one-way directional changes. I was asked to put that on the safety agenda. We have did some work in that area. One of the things we did was try to scrape back the overgrowth from the street to see how much more street was there, and there wasn't. So, and we've also did some trimming up there. In addition to, we have hung a hidden drive sign with a flashing yellow light, which all of us are not satisfied with. So I'm going to reach out to the sign company. To the chief's point, I don't even know if it's an LED. It's just not very bright during the day. But the mirror, on the other hand, that we ordered is working wonderful, to the point I ordered another one to put on the same pole that the hidden drive light is on, because I think the mirrors are working out so well on Basel Street. So all of the things that we talked about have been completed. And we still need to talk about Canal Street one-way directional change, because that is, I think, up for the third reading tonight.
To Terry's point real quick about the mirror and the signs, I drove up that one way and I was like, "Ooh, the mirror's hung." So I called Terry and I said, "I saw the mirror was hung." She goes, "Yeah, the sign's up too." And I said, "What sign?" And that's kind of the problem. That's kind of the problem with the sign.
So
Sign
what's
is disappointing.
Turning
Yeah.
it back into a two-way street, are we leaving it that way or are we turning it around?
So if the ordinance tonight
We can talk about that now.
passes, yeah,
Okay. Well, the way the ordinance is, if it passes, it's gonna become a two-way street. If it becomes a two-way street, well, then you're still gonna have traffic coming out onto.
Right. Which is
Bob.
not a lot, but yeah.
Now, as what I've heard, the old ordinance actually has the traffic running
The-
west.
so if it doesn't,
So if the ordinance fails this evening, they'll just change the sign around and make it as the old ordinance was originally.
I asked him about that. He said, "You better read that ordinance, because I'm telling you, it goes east."
Do we
I
have
asked
the old
him.
ordinance?
Well, while you have a discussion, I'll pull it up.
I was gonna say, can you pull it up and then you can either share it on your screen and we'll see it here.
Can't you modify the ordinance before you pass
Yeah,
it?
because I
Yeah. Well, I need to know what's on the,
we need to know
Yeah,
which.
do we want to defeat it and turn the signs around, or do we want to pass it and go back to two-way? I'm fine
or we can
two-way,
amend it.
Yeah.
And make it go,
the other way.
The other way.
make it go west instead of east. So,
Alright.
all right.
So while she looks at,
She's gonna check that out. so.
We move on.
All right, so we talked about that.
Chief,
Go ahead, Chief.
We go to now.
well, we can go to your report while
Yeah.
Terry's
Oh.
doing that, because that was kind of her report that jumped down to old business, so.
Well, let's, what I've done is, I pulled data down. We put the sign up out in the new sign up in a reported problem area. And what we wanted to see, is there any correlation between the operation of that sign and a decrease in speeds? So what you have in front of you on this report, you have the front report is actually 927 through 1025, I believe it was today, it cut it off. So if you immediately look at where it says count, which is on the far right column, go to the bottom, you'll see in the 30-day period, we had 45,682 vehicles cross through that area. I thought it would be around 30. I thought somewhere in there. I didn't think it would be anywhere in that range, but the data is good data. So that's what it is. Now, the other thing and we'll go back and look at some other things, but if you look on page 2 of that first page, what you're going to see is across the bottom, there's a summary. Go over to column 4. Column 4 is the percent of violations. You'll see that with the sign in operation, the percent of cars that are violating the 35 mile an hour are 35%. Prior to us turning the sign on, the number of vehicles violating 35 miles an hour was 43%. So that's a pretty healthy decrease with that sign out there. So I think we're definitely getting our bang for the buck with the thing.
When we talk about violation, is that 36 and above?
Yeah, it's dialed in at, we dialed it in at anything above, 36 and up.
Okay.
Because we want, we thought that would give us at least an idea.
Okay.
Because this ultimately breaks this down into speed averages by hour. As you look at the front page of both of those, you'll see that some of the things are bolden and it has an H. That is the high water mark for each of those. So for example, on the first page, between the hours of 1 a.m. and 2 a.m., we had 177 vehicles. That is an average of 35, 41 violations, or 41 total, which is 23%. We had a minimum speed of 3 miles per hour, which could have been anything. Could have been somebody in a bicycle or something that tripped it maybe. But then the maximum speed, which I think is interesting, was 71 miles per hour. And this is all inbound that it's recorded. So everything is inbound coming into town. But the average speed out there now is 32 miles per hour, with the 87th percent of speed being 37 miles per hour. So again, it kind of gives us a picture of what we're looking at. Going back to the first row, if you look down total vehicles, you see that between 4 and 5 o'clock is our highest peak straight across the board. 32 or 3,235 vehicles total on for that, which is an average of 647, and total violations 1,450, with a high being in that 45% of violators. And again, it has a lot to do with cars that are people going from work, coming into town, whatever it may be. The other report, when you look at it, which is the previous report, it's important to point out that the total number of vehicles you're seeing is diminished because we did not turn that sign on until about mid-month. So we're tracking a different data stream, less days in that. We still ended up with 16,371 in vehicles even for that short period of time. And coming down the side on, again, the far right column, those are all speed variables. So the bottom would be between 96 and 100 miles, how many car, all the way up. In this case, you can see that between 56 and 60 miles an hour, we had 2, 51, 55, 7, so on. But in this case, the vast majority of cars, 5,092, were between 36 miles an hour and 40 miles an hour, which would be in a zone that would be expected because of differences in manufacturers, people changing out the size of tires on vehicles. There can be a 3, 4, 5 mile an hour variance between what a radar or a laser will show and what they're actually seeing on their dash. So they may very well be looking at 35 and we're picking them up at like 38, 39, somewhere around in there. So that's kind of a snapshot of where we are. We're going to continue to look at these, but again, I think the most important of all of this, when we look at this, is the fact that we've been able to reduce from 43% of the vehicles in that area violating. And again, remember, that's at the reduced rate of 16,371 to where we're standing at about 35% for 45,682 trips of the machine.
And as I look at this, we've got roughly 40,000 vehicles of those 45,000 within plus or minus 5 miles an hour of the speed limit.
Right.
So from 30 to 40.
My question is, since everybody knows that sign's there, are they coming 100 yards before they get there? They're going pretty fast and that sign's going to be there, so they cut down the speed.
I would say that's probably a fair statement. You know what, the average person, what they do when they drive, and it's just is what it is. I think maybe we all do it. So we're coming in and you see a sign that says 35 ahead, and then you see a sign that says 35. Well, where it said 35 ahead, most of us lift off the gas and we let gravity kind of take over and slow the car. So the chance you're going 35 when you enter that zone is usually pretty slim. You're probably still, if you were in, like say driving, going 60, you're probably down into the mid 40s at the time that you cross into the zone, and then they let it coast down. But what we're picking up would be anything that basically would be from where the sign is to where that big tree is right there on the corner. So yeah, I mean, what's prior to that?
Yeah.
I could speculate, and I would tell you, I think that's exactly what's happening. But two things with that sign that two comments I've had on that sign. One was that it really grabs your attention, which it really does, I think. And the other is people love that it gives you a message and it says slow down if you're over the limit. So,
And I'll admit, I tested it. I hit 40, it turns red.
yes, it does.
It like 37, it's still yellow because you're still there. But once I hit, I think 40, it turned red once I was 5 miles an hour over the speed limit.
And people still, I have to tell you, people still believe that they're getting a picture taken.
Is that right?
Yeah, they really believe that thing.
Yeah.
I'm just not saying anything, so.
Hey, you see a reduction in the speed, that's good.
But for that seemed like a large investment, but bluntly, for the safety that it has added to that neighborhood out there, I think that it was a bargain.
Money
I
well
really-
spent.
Really do.
Every time I go north, I go through this old town and they got one of those signs out and it catches my attention every time. And it's like, I slow down.
Mhm.
I'm in the big truck, but still.
Well, we're hoping that at some point we can identify a grant out there, because I think ideally what would be really outstanding is we could have one at every portal coming into town. As soon as you hit town, it's like, man, these guys are, there it is in your face.
Which I guess begs the next question of where's the next location?
I would think that we would have to, we're getting a mobile mount for this eventually. And when we get that, what my desire is to put it on at the entryway coming into town on 158, entryway from the north on 158, and then let's go out and take a look out here. Those are the primary routes that are bringing traffic in. And then whichever those identify as the heaviest utilized traffic arena, then I think that's where we go next.
I'd be interested to see on 256 coming in from Pickerington. Because I know when I'm going out, you see it all the time. You come in and, the railroad tracks is where the speed limit changes. And I see people let up after they ramp over the railroad tracks and they're coasting in at 55 until they hit Ruth's house almost.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've done on enforcement out there, just for curiosity.
Yeah, he's always out there.
We've been real flocking.
Yeah.
They come over the hill. Because here's the thing, literally they pass Maple out there, and it's like I'm in the Indianapolis 500.
I've seen officers with people pulled over as far out as the VFW and almost to the grain mill by the time they caught up with them for when they're flying out of town. So
I know. There's a sign in VFW, if they talk down and slow down.
Well, good. I'm glad they noticed.
They noticed.
But attached to the back of this also, and this is, and I think you guys already got it. I wasn't sure if you had it or not, but that's just the Fairfield Engineers data that Terry had requested, that I just added to the back. That way you've got everything in one packet.
now, because I like data and I like playing around with it, does this export into Excel as well?
I believe so. I'll have to look at that.
So that, yes.
Yes.
All right.
Our resident expert is not with me right now. That would be Dylan Clark. So, yeah, this is good data. This is some of the best data I've ever seen on a traffic study. Clearly we're going to use this to set up our selective enforcements. But I just can't, I know I'm rambling, but I cannot tell you how tickled I am to see that reduction in that speed. That amazed me that it was that much.
Good. Anybody any questions for the chief?
You move on, I have your ordinance.
Huh?
When you move back to Canal Street, I have your ordinance.
Oh, okay, old business, Canal Street.
I'm gonna put it up here for everybody. Because we might be eating our words. Give me a second here. We'll cover up Terry real quick. One way running east from High Street to Basel Street.
Okay.
Isn't that what you just said, Tim said it would be?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it
He
is,
knew, there was no doubt, no hesitation, no nothing.
so it is put up correctly.
It is.
Okay.
Now, the ordinance is what it is. I very clearly remember Tony House sitting here telling me
Yep.
multiple times that it was supposed to go the other way, but the ordinance was incorrect according to him, but that's what passed.
Someone was directionally challenged. Well, everyone was directionally challenged.
That's what passed. So,
He's
So
a
I guess-
company,
I guess
running east.
I guess to answer Mike's question, if it passes tonight, it would remove this and it would go two-way. And if the ordinance tonight is defeated, it would stay one way, the way it currently is,
Or we can amend it.
or we can amend it.
Well, I talked to 3 of the people over there, and a lot of the kids have grown up and got a little more conscious of the street, I guess, except for my one neighbor. I saw 3 of her kids today, just and never looked either way. But you don't see any of them here, and they just kind of said, whatever. And I said, well, they'll come bitching back to me then, if it.
I prefer it two-way because I don't have to go through the gauntlet to get to my house when I'm coming to and from Lancaster.
Mhm.
Because when you made that one way the way it is, it was right at the time we were going to her mom and dad's house like 4 to 5 times a day to take care of them and to help them. And it was like, wow, thanks guys.
I used to use it as the shortcut when coming back from court to Lancaster to get to my office as well.
So I prefer it two-way, but I don't like it the way it is. I'm fine with it going the other way. I prefer it two-way would be my 2 cents worth. And I think Mike and I are the most effective.
My only thing is that why not on that hill? Because you drive the truck and I drive the truck.
It's wider than the whole rest of the street though.
Yeah.
I have to
It is?
drive on the sidewalk to pass cars on the rest of the street. I mean, literally, you're either driving in the grass or you 2 cars cannot pass on the pavement on the rest of the street. On that one section, they can because it's 18 feet wide, I think. Right?
Mhm.
So it's the widest section of the whole street.
You mean the street coming off of Boswell Street is the widest section?
Yeah, after that, it narrows down to not half, but close to half.
And pretty soon we'll have a mobile mount for a speed counter that also does traffic counts in case we need to do counts in the future. Because that road right there would be narrow enough, it would actually catch cars going both directions.
Mhm.
Should.
I guess the only question I got is, if it brought to safety, because it's unsafe, people felt it was unsafe to pull out onto Boswell Street off of Canal Street. So if you make it two-way, they're still pulling out on the Boswell Street off of Canal Street.
Those two-way mirrors are really a big aid there, though. The other one isn't installed at the end of Basel Street yet, but once it is, I think you'll see a big difference.
But even if they're still pulling out, does it make sense, since we have the ordinance, to keep it as one way? Because the concern, the children that were in that area in the street aren't as young anymore. We already know that Rumpke goes the wrong way up that street because they can't make that turn.
Yes.
Does it make sense to keep that one portion of a street one way versus going back to two-way like most other streets in the village?
I never use the street.
I was gonna say, it
I
really
can't tell
doesn't
you.
get that much traffic. I don't know why we need to put so much thought in it. I mean, there's
Yeah.
literally a basketball hoop
Yeah.
where a kid stands in the street and plays basketball.
And you guys
Yeah.
are talking about putting a mirror there, right?
Yeah, Terry, you ordered a second mirror to put up in that
Yes.
area, right? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, I say we just let the ordinance go to, do the third reading and
We'll see how it votes.
and then we'll see how it goes. And maybe in the future, we can fix the street.
Maybe.
All right.
the only thing I want to point out is that, the only thing I would point out is what the mayor brought up, is that that's because of the turn, the garbage truck does go the wrong way on that street every week. So, you know,
But if it's two-way, it won't be, so we're
Right,
fine.
right.
that is correct. If it was two ways, then it would be okay then, which is
I wanna
what
say
they
it-
need.
It was about this time last year, I think, when we got the complaint from someone that said the truck was always going the wrong way down the street, and we investigated it and found out because of the turn right there.
Correct.
So my question is, to the committee, you wanted to go both ways in,
If we pass the ordinance as it is, it'll go both ways.
and that's what you guys wanted.
Um,
Because I'll go that way with me.
I'm not on the committee, but I prefer both ways.
Okay, and what Mike, I put,
Doesn't matter to me. I talk to him, you know, and
well, I usually
I
do.
like it one way, but you know, I can go either way on it.
You guys ain't up for anything. Okay.
Brian, call Chuck's vote last when it comes to this
Yeah,
ordinance.
me last, 'cause I'm
Oh,
gonna
me.
I'm gonna see this type vote.
I would like to see that.
the wind blows.
I would like to see that street be two ways. I agree. I would like to see it be two ways.
All right. That was a good discussion. All right, new business, North Main Street at Mulberry.
Yes, I received a complaint from, well, a couple of people that the heating and cooling people are parking right up to the curb there on Main Street. So when you come up Mulberry heading west to cross Market Street, you cannot see. I mean, we know we have a bad intersection there anyhow, but with them being parked clear back to Mulberry Street itself, it makes it worse. So I reached out to the chief to see what he thought, and so I'll let him do the talking from now. So chief, it's all yours.
Well, I went up there and sat down by the chiropractors and watched that for a while. The traffic flow is not exactly what you would call heavy coming out of there anyway. It's not like it's a bypass street. It's a very narrow, it's just a little feeder street. That's what it basically comes down to.
Mulberry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mulberry right there. So pulling up, and I tried this in my car, which is a smaller car, my personal car. I tried it in my van. I tried it with a cruiser, which sits pretty high. And depending on where traffic is parked along that north, well, either going northbound on the east side of the street, you can have obstructed vision if you're going to pull out to go straight across, or you're going to pull out to turn and go southbound.
But correct me if I'm wrong, there, real quick, chief, sorry to interrupt, but that actually comes from people in front of People's Bank, not the heating and cooling on the north side of the street, right?
No, because they're looking up the road, trying to see cars coming up.
Over
over
there.
the
Okay.
hill.
I'll say, because when I've pulled up there, I always have a hard time seeing out the left, and I feel like I'm out in the intersection before I can see past the
Well,
truck sitting in front of the bank.
And therein lies the problem. Terry and I had a long conversation about it, and I thought there's got to be a simple answer to this, and I will tell you right now, there isn't. Because we have put in limited parking, we've changed we've done all kinds of things up there to try to facilitate businesses having parking up there and not having, residents. When we used to have that apartment, it was upstairs. I mean, there was times that if you had a business there was no parking period, because they'd park there and it'd be sitting there all day. So ultimately on that, I can give you some ideas, one of which is that you take that feeder street, again, it's not a through street, and between Market and park, it would be a one-way eastbound only. So you could only turn in there, which would still, get you to the back, get you to behind the pharmacy, wherever you're going to go, that sort of thing. So that would be an option. The other is we come up with some limited time parking on that section of roadway that would be northbound on the east side, north of Mulberry. But here's the problem with that. I will tell you that I've never seen so many giant four-wheel drive diesel trucks in all my life as I have around Baltimore. So just because we make those vans move doesn't mean that somebody is not going to park one of those trucks, vans, whatever, in exactly the same place, and we're going to have exactly the same problem. So I don't know that there is a good answer. I think that we have to be cognizant that we have a thriving business up there, and I don't want to, my humble opinion is I don't think we want to do anything to cause them issues if we can avoid that. And quite honestly, I think if we restrict it, now you're going to get into how much of it do you restrict and what happens to the people that park that live there. Are they in that restricted area now where every 2 hours they got to come out and move their car or whatever? So really there's only, and the only other one is that you take that and right at the intersection, you make that a no left turn intersection. Because now you wouldn't have to pull out past anything that was parked there to try to see what was oncoming to make that turn. And to the mayor's point, that was one of the things that was interesting because there was a FedEx pulled in down in front of the pharmacy, one of those little truck things. And I'm here to tell you what, that's like a brick wall. So you're still going to have obstructed view. It's just, do we have two obstructed views or do we have one? So I think that's the only three viable things that we can do. I personally am not in favor of putting up signage to restrict parking in front of that business or at any of those, that would affect any of those residents or that business. I myself don't think that's the issue because even if you do that, you could still end up with large vehicles parked there. I kind of lean after going up there and spending time up there and physically driving it. I think the simplest solution, bluntly, would be if you restricted that left turn. If you restrict the left turn, you can still come out, you can still turn, you can still go down the water, come around, you can go to the cliff, come around, whatever you want to do. The times that I was sitting back here, I think, I might have seen, if I saw 3 or 4 cars pull out and turn left, that was a lot. So it's not like that's almost everything comes up and it's northbound. So, but that's what my observations have told me we have there. Is it a problem? Yeah, it's definitely a point of perception problem. But I think anywhere that you're going to have larger vehicles with an uphill grade and a building obstruction, the bank is an obstruction, their building is an obstruction, especially with if you're driving a bigger building. Yeah, there is no perfect answer. It's picking what is, I think, the easiest for us to do that's not going to affect the vast majority of people.
It's a shame there's not a utility pole across the street we could put a mirror on.
Mulberry Way. All these are commercial trucks sitting there. Their trucks are sitting up and down.
But I don't
Main
think
Street.
I don't think they sit there long. But there are, I mean, because I drive by that way, and quite frankly, Hallie rides her bike around that block a whole lot too. And when I come up Mulberry to come out, I very rarely am going straight across the street. Occasionally, but that's usually on like a weekend. I did it a couple weeks ago, and it is a pain, and it was rush hour, so I was extra cautious. You're worried about what's coming up from your left, from in front of the bank, and there's a car right there, and you can't see, and you're inching out, and then you get into the road to see that you're clear, not going to get hit that way, and then you got to turn and look the other way up the hill to make sure you can do it. it's not the best intersection. But at the same time, we also don't get that many wrecks there.
That's because people are extra cautious because they can't see.
And I think that's a
Yeah.
really good point. You know, as crazy as it sounds, the worse the road, whether it's potholes or whatever, the more cautious people drive.
And Cliff is arguably just as bad, really.
If not worse.
Yeah.
Oh,
If
yeah.
I were to choose,
Because-
I'm inclined when I'm coming in Granville, which we found out a lot of people do, I actually go to Mulberry because it's safer to come out on the market than it is if I go to Cliff.
Right. Because you come out on Mulberry, you make that right.
Right.
Yeah. You
So-
sit on Cliff, it's right at the crest of the hill. Yeah.
You just gotta look under the cars.
Well, if I can, going back to those service vans, a lot of times it seems like what they're doing is they're coming in, they keep product inside those buildings also. So they're pulling in there and they're coming out with pipe, they're coming out with whatever it is they need, they're loading their van up. They're there for a period of time and then they're off and gone. Next thing you know, you get maybe one or two more service trucks pulling in. They're going job to job and coming back and picking up product is what most of the time that is.
There's no parking behind there for them to do their business from behind.
I don't know.
It just seems kind of odd that we have,
There's a gravel parking
We
lot
have
there
more
with
like
all
a-
the way.
we have more like a warehouse in there on Main Street instead of business.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things that, and I don't know, do you know, do they sell retail out of there? They don't sell retail, do they?
Yeah.
No.
I think it's pretty common if you're in a plumbing business or whatever, that you keep products, certain things that you know, like, okay, well, I'm going to, this
Yeah,
is something that, you know.
I'm always
Most of
going to
those
need this.
businesses
Yeah.
Don't do that from front parking on a.
When I'm looking at the map,
downtown.
I'm looking at it on Google Maps and there's not really anything parking wise behind it. I mean, there's a garage, but then they're going down an alley. And then we got all those trucks going down an alley. So,
Owns all three of those other garages in.
yeah, it's, and I said, I don't see the trucks there parked very long, but they are frequently there because they're coming back and getting parts and stuff in between calls and stuff like that. And so it looks like they're all day long, but if you pay close attention, I personally haven't seen them there for long periods of time, except maybe lunchtime.
And they're not parked there over the weekend.
Depends on the weekend. Yeah, sometimes I've seen them there.
Attention to it, 'cause I don't got that way around.
Yeah, sometimes I've seen them there, but it's not something that's like that, I'm remembering, oh, they're there all the time.
It's been brought to the committee, do you feel that it's unsafe enough that we need to change something, or?
What I would suggest is that, we put that on our selective enforcement and we compile data for the next 30 days on how much, what we're seeing up there is a creating problem. And back to the mayor's point, I've looked, I couldn't find one single accident that we've ever taken there. So I think if we did that, then we can report back in 30 days and maybe give you better information to make a decision.
It's probably the same people that use that street all the time anyhow, so they know the problem.
Uh-huh.
And like I said, it ain't very many houses on it.
No, it's people, they're coming out of the drive-through from the bank or out of the back of the pharmacy, or if the few houses there on it to come out, or,
Just want to move this to old business then,
yeah.
okay. Safety audit,
I reported that out in the service, and that was the items that we had to address in the parks as they were noted by the insurance company. And again, this week I'll be sending out our report to show that we've taken care of all those issues.
okay. And we already talked about our speed radar sign.
Yeah.
That's good. All right. Does anybody have anything else for new business? 7:24. We'll adjourn the meeting.
All right. Pause.